Uncharted 1 was the first ever game I got the Platinum Trophy for over 5 years ago. But for some reason, I just completely ignored the DLC trophies. So in this video, I'm returning to the game and getting all of them. There's a total of 8 DLC trophies, and I'd already got 3 of them. The 3 that I'd already got were really easy. Comparing statistics with friends is literally like one button. You can play the last mission on normal mode without dying, so that's not too bad. And the cosplay trophy is pretty simple as well. Just take someone out while you're wearing a costume. The first trophy I decided to go for was Cheetah. It required me to turn on a tweak, which is essentially a cheat in this game. After that, I decided to go for the trophy Supernatural Born Killers, which I would get for defeating 5 Descendants with a sniper rifle. If you didn't know, Descendants are these weird looking creatures that look like if Gollum was on that Gollum juice.
We invented this juice called Gollum juice.
What the bloody hell is Gollum juice? Anyway, the best way to get this trophy is to load into chapter 17, and then when you're in the area where all of the Descendants are, grab yourself a dragon sniper from the weapon select menu, and then just shoot them. After I shot one of them, the trophy popped, so I must have done it 4 times already back when I first went for the platinum. Now the only trophies left were the ones I was dreading the most. The Fat and the Furious. Yes, that is the real name, by the way. Need for Speed, Uncharted Brutal. Right now I'm going to focus on those first 2. The Fat and the Furious requires you to complete a continuous speedrun of the game as Donut Drake. And now you may be wondering, who the bloody hell is Donut Drake? And, well, here he is.
Man, I'm so fat.
I guess this is after you ate all of that Subway. The trophy Need for Speed requires you to complete a speedrun of the game in less than 2 hours and 30 minutes. Now you can do one speedrun of the game to get both trophies, just play as Donut Drake and then beat it under the time, but I hadn't played the game in over 5 years, so I was a little bit rusty. Initially I wasn't planning on following a guide while playing the game, but I decided to use one just in case I needed it. And yeah, pretty quickly I realised that I definitely needed one. The game is pretty linear, but to do it in under the time limit, you have to know exactly where you're going and what you're doing. I should have just done this back when I first platinumed it, as I would have been more familiar with the game. I'll go a bit more in depth into some of these chapters in the game when I talk about my Brutal playthrough, but for now, I'll go into one of the skips that I did in chapter 17. There's this pretty big area where there's a lot of soldiers and snipers, and taking them all out would kinda take a while, so what you can do is pretty much just roll past them. One thing you do have to be careful of though is the snipers, but once you get past them, just walk through the hole in the wall and you've done it. As you can probably guess, my first speedrun was, well, not that successful. I ended up with a total time of 2 hours and 53 minutes. I had about 25 minutes to shave off, which sounds like a lot, but I wasted a lot of time during fights, so I was pretty confident for my next attempt. So after that run I only got the Fat and the Furious trophy for completing it as Donut Drake. I used the Donut Drake skin again during my next run because, to be honest, it's just kinda funny. It doesn't affect gameplay at all, so it really is just a Fortnite skin. My next speedrun was going pretty well, until I got about halfway through and got to the jet ski section. I was trying to do it really quickly to save as much time as possible, but this is a part of the game where it really helps to have a bit of patience. There's enemies shooting at you from all angles, and the explosive barrels in the water don't help as well. Eventually I got through it all, but I'd wasted about 5 minutes, so I just decided to reset and start again. Looking back now, that might have been a mistake, but whatever. I gave it another go, and now that I was a bit more familiar with the game, I was starting to remember where enemies would appear, and overall, I just knew what I was doing a bit more. What happened at the final bit of the game though is kinda funny. I was doing the normal punch, kick, punch, and then after he somehow kicked Donut Drake to the floor, I had to run up to him and punch him before he fired his gun. And yeah, that didn't exactly go to plan. I would have been so annoyed if that messed up my run, but I still had about 20 minutes to spare, so I restarted the checkpoint and gave it another go. This time it all went to plan, and I finally finished my speedrun with a total time of 2 hours, 9 minutes and 28 seconds. And with that, I got my trophy. All that was left now is probably the most difficult trophy to get in the whole game. To get the Uncharted Brutal trophy, you need to beat the whole game on the Brutal difficulty. To even unlock Brutal, you need to beat the game on Crushing, which because I did it years ago, I kinda forgot how difficult even that was. I was pretty quickly reminded though at the very beginning of the game on the boat. This is when I realised that Brutal difficulty is literally just if Uncharted was realistic. One shot to the head and boom, you're dead. By the way, there is a bit of a glitch you can do where you can enable tweaks on Brutal mode, even if you hadn't beaten it, but I wanted to do it properly. The first few chapters of the game really weren't too bad, mainly because there just isn't a lot of fighting at the start of the game, but it was chapter 4 where it really started to get a bit insane. This is still pretty early on in the game where you just don't really have strong weapons, and the cover available really isn't that great either. One strategy that was really helpful was instead of being in cover by pressing circle, I was just standing normally behind it, so I didn't have to keep poking my head out to shoot at enemies. 1 or 2 bullets can instantly kill you on this difficulty, so doing this is pretty essential to clearing areas. The bit that really unleashed my gamer rage was this bit in chapter 4 by this gate. I first had to clear out the enemies that were in front of me, which usually went okay sometimes. There was just a lot of them. I tried to get them to run to me, and then I would either try to land a headshot on one of them, or take them out with melee. There was then another room after it with a lot of enemies in, and to even get them to spawn I had to fully enter it. This room has absolutely terrible cover, so I decided to run back into the previous room to play it safe, and wait for the enemies to come to me. Usually about 3 of them would come through the door to get me, and if I reacted quick enough, I could take them all out with headshots to save a few bullets. You can normally hear one of them shout when they're gonna rush you, so I was literally listening out for audio cues like I was playing FNAF or something.
How many knights are there?
There's 5.
Oh.
After that, the big guy would usually then come in with his shotgun, and it was so annoying to be killed in one shot because I didn't react quick enough. Another problem that I was facing here was that I had very little ammo to take out all of these enemies, so I had to be really careful not to waste too many bullets. I think having a checkpoint in between the enemies at the gate and all of the ones in the next room would have really helped, but honestly, the checkpoints could have been a lot worse. Eventually I managed to take out all of the enemies here, and then when I died in the next area and didn't respawn next to that gate again, I was so relieved. It was so nice knowing that I didn't have to play that bit ever again on Brutal. The next part in chapter 4 that was just pure pain was this bit by the crashed plane. Again, there just wasn't good cover here, and the amount of enemies I had to defeat was just crazy for how much ammo I had. The few grenades that I had helped a bit, but at one point I had to make a pretty risky run towards better cover, which I somehow survived. With less than 10 bullets between my guns, I had to take out both of these enemies to get to the next checkpoint. My next few shots had to count, but just watch what I do here. What the hell was that? He was right there, I could have got him. I now only had 6 bullets left. I managed to land a headshot on the guy in front of me, and now there's only 1 enemy left. I luckily found a bit more ammo for my pistol right next to me, and after hitting him a couple of times, I'd done it, with only 2 bullets left. All of the enemies in this wave were now defeated. Or, well, that's at least what I thought. Just as I was gathering all of the ammo I could find, this happened. There's still a guy with a shotgun, and somehow I still managed to live. There must have been some divine intervention here, because how did I survive that? From there, chapter 4 continued to just be horrible, and at this point I was convinced that they didn't actually playtest this difficulty. Like, there's no way they playtested this and were like, yep, they're gonna love this. Like, there's no way. Chapter 5 was a little bit easier, but the water room was probably one of the worst areas in the whole game. It's just a horrible room with loads of enemies all around you and some even above you. There's even multiple waves of them, like, why? The scariest part was definitely when the 2 guys with shotguns came out at the end, and I just about managed to take them both out. There's sort of a similar situation in chapter 6, where there's enemies all around you and you can die standing at the part where you respawn, which I'll be honest is really crazy and more proof to me that they didn't fully playtest this. What's even crazier is in this area, you're supposed to run up these stairs and then the next set of enemies spawn for you to take out. There's a few spots for you to hide at the top of the stairs, and from there, you defeat all of the enemies. But instead, because this is brutal, you just die instantly. I mean, why wouldn't it? That makes complete sense. Why wouldn't that happen? I eventually looked up online what to do here, and I tried out this one strategy where you run up the stairs to spawn them in, and then you drop through the cracked part of the stairs to hide back down at the bottom. If I hid quick enough and got a bit lucky, I could get some cover and stay safe. Well, at least for a little bit. You see, this one guy to the right of me caused me a lot of trouble, as he could still hit me from the angle he was at. I was a bit desperate to survive, so I threw a grenade towards him and thankfully it hit him. I then took my time to take out the rest of the enemies, and I managed to complete the area. That was definitely a part of the game that just wasn't fun on Brutal. I pretty much just had to get lucky. The Jeep chase section on chapter 7 was honestly just kind of funny. Nate can just die instantly if you miss a shot or just get unlucky. This is also when I remembered that on the Jeep you can shoot normally and not just send out the grenades. I felt like such an idiot for not remembering that. Thankfully, they're pretty generous with the checkpoints here, and with a bit of luck and enough patience, it's not too bad. Similar to that, the jet ski sections were also pretty difficult. I decided to just take them really slowly, picking off enemies one by one as I spotted them. If I accelerated a bit too much and went into an area without taking out all of the enemies first, I would pretty much just die instantly. I'd say that none of these later chapters get as hard as the early ones, but one of the fights outside the church was really tough. The coverage available is decent enough, but all of the snipers around and just the amount of enemies in total make it really tough. I thought the parts with the descendants were going to be really hard, with them just one-shotting you or something, but weirdly, you can survive a hit from them. I guess they're just weak as hell, I don't know. What's kinda cool is that you can still do the skip I mentioned earlier, even in brutal mode. Just be careful of the sniper, and with a little bit of luck, you'll make it. The last area that gave me a bit of trouble was inside the church. This pretty much has the same problems as the rest of the areas, just bad cover and loads of enemies. The cover was so bad that I decided to go outside of the church when the last guys would start appearing. Weirdly, this kind of worked. It was a bit risky, but from here, they would just come through the door and I would take them out. I thought I was done after that, so I went back into the church and I picked up an M79 off the floor. Instantly after that, 3 more enemies ran into the church and I could not believe it. I'd already defeated so many enemies and they were still spawning. I was lucky I had the M79 equipped as that quickly took them out. I don't think I would have survived that if I didn't have the M79. From there, I made my way to the final area and I was so close to completing the game. The standing behind cover and not actually being in cover strategy is really essential here, as poking your head out over these boxes is pretty risky and will most likely get you killed instantly. There's a couple of sections to get through here, but one kind of annoying part is that when you dive out of the way of these crates, there's a good chance you'll just die instantly. I had to just keep playing this part over and over until I got lucky enough to be able to get to cover safely. From there, I got back behind these crates and just kept taking out all of the enemies surrounding the boss, one by one. There's not too many enemies in this last section, but one of them did decide to rush me and I wasn't expecting it, so he managed to kill me. But other than that, once I took out the guy up top, that was it. I was finally at the last section of the game. Brutal mode doesn't really affect this final fight at all. I just had to do the usual and try and not get shot by him. And after punching and kicking Navarro, he was finally defeated. And I was finally done with brutal mode and got my trophy. I'm so happy that it finally says 100% on my profile for this game. But was it really worth it? All that brutality? I'd say so. It was tough, but it's definitely doable. You've just got to get past those early chapters and just keep going, even when it gets kind of ridiculous and unfair. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Definitely consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.